the Chinese government, under the express authority of Chairman Xi Jinping, failed to ground international flights from the province, allowing coronavirus to spread and within the year become a global pandemic. With symptoms similar to a protracted case of the flu and a high rate of infection, these factors would guarantee that COVID would grow to become the singular threat that terrorized the whole world without exception. Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to the Hard Light Network. The last few years worldwide have been pandemonium as a result of the isolation and paranoia many experienced under the COVID-19 pandemic. Mental and physical health worldwide have plummeted. Many of us are still dealing with the fallout lockdown caused in our personal lives, our businesses and relationships still recovering from years of desperate attempts to curb the spread of new infections. Concerns for our most at-risk members of society mounting with every passing day. Some of us went days, even weeks, without contact from our loved ones. Many of us lost our jobs. Many of us succumbed to the growing sense of despair. 2 weeks ago, the U.S. Energy Department released a statement confirming what many suspected from the start. The virus was likely leaked from a lab dedicated specifically to studying novel coronavirus strains. The Chinese response was quick and decisive, with all national flights to and from Wuhan promptly shut down as quarantine measures were enacted. However, the Chinese government, under the express authority of Chairman Xi Jinping, failed to ground international flights from the province, allowing coronavirus to spread and within the year become a global pandemic. With symptoms similar to a protracted case of the flu and a high rate of infection, these factors would guarantee that COVID would grow to become the singular threat that terrorized the whole world without exception.
There is new intelligence that's likely to rekindle the unsettled debate over the origins of COVID. The U.S. Department of Energy has concluded that it most likely came from a lab leak and not from an infected animal. But two CNN sources point out the department only backs this new assessment with, quote, low confidence. The Wall Street Journal was first to report on this, and reporter Michael Gordon was part of the newspaper's team that broke the story. Michael, thanks so much for being with us. What is this new assessment based on? Does it add more clarity or just muddy the waters even more, do you think?
Well, Jim, there's been a division in the U.S. intelligence community all along. And previously, as we reported, the FBI had asserted that a lab leak was likely with moderate confidence. And several other agencies were on the other side, saying with low confidence, it might have emerged naturally, meaning it leapt from an animal to a human being. What's new here is the Department of Energy has gone from an agnostic position, saying they don't know where it came from, to leaning toward the lab theory, as we reported, with low confidence. So now you have two agencies leaning toward the lab theory, one with low confidence, one with moderate confidence, and four on the natural side with low confidence. There's still a division, but it's significant that the Energy Department, which has national laboratories under its jurisdiction, is staking out this stance.
Well, let me ask you this. I want to play a clip from White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan referencing your reporting on CNN earlier this morning. Let's listen to what he had to say.
One of the things in that Wall Street Journal report, which I can't confirm or deny, but I will say the reference to the Department of Energy, President Biden specifically requested that the national labs, which are part of the Department of Energy, be brought into this assessment because he wants to put every tool at use to be able to figure out what happened here.
The Wuhan novel respiratory coronavirus lab. The disease is the same name as the lab. So wait a minute, you work at the Wuhan respiratory coronavirus lab. How did this happen? And they're like, a pangolin kissed a turtle. And you're like, no, the name of your lab. If you look at the name, let me see your business card. I work at the coronavirus lab in Wuhan. Oh, because there's a coronavirus loose in Wuhan. How did that happen? Maybe a bat flew into the cloaca of a turkey and then it sneezed into my chili. There's been an outbreak of chocolatey goodness near Hershey, Pennsylvania. Maybe a steam shovel mated with a cocoa bean. Or it's the chocolate factory.
Regardless of the exact source of the outbreak, whether it was leaked from a government facility or if it was indeed the result of a pangolin kissing a turtle, one thing is abundantly clear. The global pandemic was a direct result of Chinese mismanagement of the outbreak. The Xi Jinping occupying a position of unilateral and unchallenged authority, there is a case to be made for his ultimate responsibility for all this. The lack of checks and balances in the Chinese system, combined with the corruption and authoritarian bent of the CCP, have wrought havoc the world over, and China stood to gain from it all. From the increase in Chinese exports during the pandemic to the exploitation of America's positive attitude towards immigration, it's increasingly likely that this entire situation was exacerbated, if not orchestrated directly by the CCP in order to strengthen China's position in the global economy and advance its ambition to be the dominant world power. And with tensions rising over the conflict in Ukraine, combined with reports of China's international policing efforts, it doesn't look like things will be improving anytime soon.
There is now a competition across the American political spectrum as to who is going to be more anti-Chinese. And so there are resolution after law after amendment across Congress to prove that the Republicans or the Democrats happen to be the ones that hate China the most. Gone are the days that the business community was even part of this conversation, and now it's all political and everyone is competing to see who can beat their chest the most. That should be your first big takeaway, that relations with the Chinese on the American side of the equation are breaking down because they no longer have a defender, they only have attackers. So whether you like Trump or Biden or hate Trump or Biden, everyone has decided that they don't like the Chinese very much. That's number one. What's number two? Oh yeah, there's plenty of reasons why we should still be mad about the Chinese even if it's not a lab leak. So the lab leak theory is based on the idea that either through carelessness, negligence, or accident, it leaked out. So accidental being the key word there. And obviously, if the Chinese did allow it to escape from a lab and hushed it up, that is bad. But that is ultimately accidental. What we know for sure, what there is no dispute of, what even the Chinese admit publicly, is that for the 2 weeks after the Chinese realized they were dealing with a respiratory pathogen in Wuhan, they banned domestic flights to and from Wuhan, but they allowed international flights to continue and spread the virus worldwide. The lab leak would be embarrassing, but what we know for certain was that the Chinese intentionally allowed the virus to spread globally. And from my point of view, that means it's perfectly reasonable for the Democrats and Republicans to compete as to who is more anti-Chinese these days.
Now China has gone as far as to push back against the US, stating that bolstering of our trade partnerships with Japan, India, and in Asia at large will lead to further conflicts, even blatantly using the term derailment in their veiled threat, bringing to mind the recent increase in severe industrial accidents involving train derailments.
Today at the National People's Congress, the new Chinese foreign minister came out swinging.
If the United States does not hit the brake but continue to speed down the wrong path, no amount of guardrails can prevent derailing, and there will surely be conflict and confrontation.
With all that being said, Americans on both the left and the right have a vested interest in putting our people first and in working with our allies in Western Europe to ensure that China is held accountable for terrorizing the vulnerable citizens of the world through their greed. It's time we all began to work towards a better America and, by extension, a better world. With the help of our closest allies in Canada, Mexico, India, and Japan, America can rebuild a more robust manufacturing and trade network to ensure a more equitable and prosperous future for all of our people, and to finally put an end to decades of territorial aggressions of an imperialist China.
This week, the U.S. House of Representatives' new China Select Committee held a hearing about the threats the U.S. faces from the Chinese Communist Party. The 3-hour live event featured talks from Democratic and Republican members of Congress, plus testimony from former U.S. security officials and Chinese rights activists. The hearing even had a couple of hecklers from the anti-war group Code Pink.
Your sign is upside down.
Anyway, the point of the committee is to counter CCP threats. Here's committee chairman, Republican Congressman Mike Gallagher.
The Select Committee will not allow the CCP to lull us into complacency or maneuver us into submission.
And here's ranking committee member, Democratic Congressman Raja Krishnamurti.
We must practice bipartisanship and avoid anti-Chinese or Asian stereotyping at all costs. We must recognize that the CCP wants us to be fractious, partisan, and prejudiced. In fact, the CCP hopes for it. But what they don't get is that the diversity of our viewpoints and backgrounds is not a bug in America's operating system. It is our defining feature and strength.
Thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, leave a like, and until next time, love you guys, safe travels.